No.
Good. Okay. There's two other ones that blew my mind this morning, but that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about that.
Okay.
I need to talk about other things that blow our minds.
Oh my God.
Happy Friday, October 18th, 2024. It's time to wake up with AI. And we're here with Nico and George to help us do just that. How you fellas doing?
Doing wonderful this morning. There's just a plethora of breakthroughs in the last 24 hours. A lot of news, a lot of updates. Looking forward to the weekend to try to absorb it all.
I don't know how I'm doing. I thought I was doing okay. And then this morning happened in Slack. And I started watching videos that Nico was sending over. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with myself for the rest of the day. I got stuff to do. I'm busy. Clients want work done. Super admins want training. And there's these videos. And I started watching some of them. And I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I'm doing, Chris. I don't know how to answer that question right now.
So what was the oh God?
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Dude, the sphere. The sphere thing. Yeah. Like the digital ID. Oh my God, is this Revelations? Like I was like, are we in biblical times? Like, wait, I gotta prove I'm a human? But then I was like, that thing looks really cool. Would I want to own one? I don't know. Will I need one? I'm not sure. All of a sudden there was like a billion questions in my brain. And I'm like, I just need a minute. So Chris, no, I don't know how I'm doing this morning.
Okay. Yeah. I can understand that entirely.
How you're doing, like most days, George. So we appreciate that. So we're hitting on that, Nico? Or are we talking about using AI to catch fraud? Maybe that's the same thing. I clearly didn't watch the videos. I'm not doing my homework. So
no, that's something entirely different.
Maybe you're better off. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out.
This is what I try to tell people. Like, no, you want me coming in unprepared. It's just better content that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's the thing is like, I always look forward to the blown minds, to the reactions from you guys every morning after I purposefully just dump into that channel everything that I've looked at for the last, few hours. And unfortunately I did a self-imposed challenge this morning to see how much I could catch up on in just 5 minutes, and it was a decent amount. It was a handful, but I think that is probably the best example I can give you guys, the crew, that is how I go across the spectrum like that, right? So like how I look at it from a government standpoint of view, from a robotics standpoint of view, from a banking standpoint of view, from an actual application point of view, to an AI advancement point of view, to a whole new world point of view. So
yeah, and not like the Disney song "A Whole New World," not that kind of whole new world. Like, I mean, a whole new world. Like, oh my God.
Oh man, you have that perfect. Wherever that's at, keep it. That's perfect. Yeah. So I'm going to touch on that real quick, but then I want to get to the story I teased yesterday. So what we're murmuring about here is a new device that is behind, that OpenAI has been behind. I'm not sure if it's OpenAI. I'm sure it's Y Combinator funded. One way or another, Sam Altman is very, very involved. This is not something new. The device being completed is new. The idea is actually a little over a year old. Sam Altman talked about the fact, pretty much, look, when GPT-3 hit the web, the first thing I said was, the truth is dead. It's over. The last of the truth is finished now. You will never be able to know whether somebody has done something from generated or not. And even when people try to challenge me about different content types, it's like, nope, can't do it. I even saw a video of a guy who hooked up a GPT to a pen on a CNC machine so that it could write the output on paper so that he could turn that in. Right.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was like, it was over on every scale. Right. So he came out and said, look, given that we can't tell the difference in text, we can't tell the difference in voice, we have to come up with something new. So, and facial as well, right? Because you can mimic facial now. A really scary part of that video was the fact that people are using facial deepfake and using Zoom deepfake in order to deepfake as your CEO, as your CFO, to then get a hold of accounting and have them cut a check. How scary is that? So this technology is based, and it's going to eventually get to your phone too, but it's on device as well for physical locations. And what it does is it's a retinal scan. So let's all just put our minds
I'm telling you, it's Minority Report.
Yeah,
it's Minority Report. I'm like, oh my God, we're there.
Ding.
We're there.
Ding, ding, ding. So it's Minority Report. If you've seen that movie, you'll see a very famous scene of Tom Cruise running through an alleyway, and a scanner picks up, scans his eye from probably a good 50 meters away, or 50 yards rather, and instantly changes the advertising that he's seeing on a billboard, and it's personalized to him. Okay. The reason we're going this route is because it will take us much, much longer. And I'm not entirely sure. I'm very sure we will never develop the equivalent of human eyes for robotics, because it's unnecessary. They need cameras. They don't need the same corneas. It's not designed the same way, in other words. So because of the fact that they can just use a camera and the rest of it's normal, easily in within nanoseconds, that's a robot eye, that's a human eye. So this is the new method of being able to detect, are you human? Okay.
I think
that's
it's
just
good.
I know that, yeah, it's a big story. Definitely dive into it more next week, but just want to touch up what that is that we're all geeked out about. The real story that I teased yesterday is about Perplexity. If you don't know about Perplexity, it is a web search engine that is LLM or generative AI based. So the big difference is where you see the Google answers that pop up nowadays, that's the only type of answer that Perplexity provides you. But it does it in sort of like an RLHF format where it's giving you this additional context to the search that it did. And the search is entirely based on sources, which it also provides for you above, and then gives you the link within every aspect of the answer where that information came from in the source that it looked at. So not only do you know that it's a 100% accurate answer, you can actually see where it got that answer from as well. So that being the case, really no more advertising, because there's like no Google ads. I just type it, I get the answer. I don't have to surf through a ton of links to find the right page that has the answer on it. I just get it. What if I was using that for news or for a book? So the New York Times, I believe, I'm pretty sure, because they're the biggies that are suing everybody left and right. The New York Times has sued Perplexity, or filed a lawsuit rather, and are saying, hey, you're violating our capabilities because your model is going through certain aspects of our site that it should not be able to in order to garner information that you're then giving to users. Right? So people are able to learn the context of a story without actually having to go and pay to read about it online. Never mind the fact that you shouldn't have to pay for information or intelligence anyway. So it brings to mind, and this morning I put something in the channel for the guys that I didn't even know until I found it this morning. I find that these companies are doing a wonderful job of supplanting anyone that would otherwise get in their way, that are considered to be just the old school, the big boys. You couldn't possibly get past them if you wanted to. And yet here are all these startups that are quite literally destroying the foundations of these older companies. Google added in what Perplexity has, and it hasn't really moved the needle for them in terms of ad revenue. It can't. Who cares, right? What does it do, though? It does the one thing that we were talking about the most at inbound, which was adds meaning. If the content that you're creating doesn't have any meaning for what I'm looking for, then I don't care about your website. I don't care about your service. I don't care about your product. But if it does have meaning, the language model will pick it up, especially if it is completely relative to what it is that I'm looking for. The closer that is, the better it is. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that everybody shouldn't be selling the same thing anymore. They shouldn't be wording it the same way. You shouldn't be looking at your competitor and saying, they word it this way, we should try wording it this way because they have larger returns than we do. You should stay in your lane. You should be even more finite, even more niche. Because if the person is looking for that thing, you need to have that thing.
So can I jump in here?
All the things with that being a part of the little bit. But the bigger story overall, I don't want to get too deep into that, is just the fact of, does this seem like a legal violation? Does it seem like a huge violation to say, we're just trying to give information to the users and we're only giving a snippet plus a link back to the original source, goes back to your site where they would have to pay to read the entire information? Or is it just a desperate attempt from newspaper outlets that are dying left, right, and center right now to try to hold on to whatever they can of subscription-based service?
So there's a couple things I want to unpack, but Chris, do you want to go first?
I mean, I'll just say I'm very interested to see how any business that was based on ad revenue, like as the number one source, like what are they going to survive? Not even like what might they do? It's like, will they survive? I think that's a real question, especially when you think about the percentage of revenue that Google Ads was for Google. And it's just going to evaporate. It already is evaporating. And there's no easy way to replace it, which just goes down a whole nother rabbit hole about this shit probably never worked to begin with, like we all thought it did. And now the jig is up. Mm-hmm. So good luck.
All right. So one, it feels like a desperate attempt on a historical mindset of owning knowledge, news, information that no longer exists in the world that we're moving to. Two, search for me over the last 6 months has felt cumbersome compared to the way that I ingest the information, education, and news or knowledge that I need now with AI tools. Three, when Nico said that you need to be more niche, more nuanced, more you, less your competitors, I want to double down on that and say, actually, yes, and you need to be so inside of your prospect, lead, customer's brain that you know what they're typing, what they're researching, what they're wanting to learn, what their problems are. Because that's, if you meet them where their brain is at, in the AI system that they're using, because they're stepping away from Google and Bing and the historical places that they got their information, and you're creating it in that way, you will align with the humans who are looking for the products and services that you serve. 100%. Oh my God. Wake up.
I don't, I don't know what else to say except yes, 100%. It's just a factor of ad space is really going to shift. It's not a fair comparison, but it really does. It kind of makes me think of Fallout. If you've ever played the game, you run around and there is just physical advertising everywhere. There's paper pamphlets all over. There's stuff plastered on buildings, huge billboards. It's meant to represent an older time that's kind of like a hybrid between, the 40s, 50s and today. But that's what I think is going to happen. When you look at Minority Report, that's one of the things of sci-fi movies that I hate, but I try to, that's where I fantasize is like, okay, but what happens on their daily personal life? What are the devices like? What's the monetary system? How do people act socially, right? I'm doing everything but paying attention to the story. And I'll just throw this out there. Steven Spielberg, love you for what you did with Ready Player One. I think that's actually one of the greatest movies to show what could possibly be the transition that's going to happen post 2030. But that goes where that just screams to what I'm saying, right? Is that you look at that world, you look at Ready Player One. I don't consider these to be like dystopian, post-apocalyptic. It's funny because, like, to me, climate change is just doing that naturally for us. It's causing us to start to migrate. If you look around the world, if you look at the news, there are climate migrations happening. So we are moving into this sort of society where we're going to have to be like closer and closer together. Advertising is going to get too annoying on a digital level, the way in which we are being pounded by it currently. And I think it's going to make a major shift back to being in the physical space, back to being in the physical world, kind of where it belongs. When I'm like, around where I'm at, it's boring. I'm not gonna lie, it's boring advertising wise until I get closer to the city, and then there's some billboards and stuff like that. I go to Cincinnati, I go to Chicago, I go to New York, totally different, right? Even the tag style advertising, that's my favorite. The human advertising that is sprayed, that's tagged onto the building, right? That it blows my mind when I see that, because I understand and I know the skill that it takes in order to pull that off. The skills.
The skills, lady, the skills. It's so interesting to hear you talk about that, because it's like, in a world that is becoming increasingly digital, in a world that is becoming increasingly AI, the thing that we will need most and seek out most is the human elements.
We're going to
Boy, was I born at the right time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of we're going to crave it. Like, yes, machines, and I see this thing whenever I watch news about progress, especially with robotics, where they are striving because we are programming them for perfection. And that brings me back to Tron Legacy, where the very one of the towards the end, probably the most worthwhile 2 minutes of the entire film, is where Flynn is having a conversation with what is a duplicate of himself digitally, he calls Clue. And Clue, they're fighting because Flynn is trying to get his son back out of the system. And Clue comes towards him and he's screaming at him, and he says, I did everything that you told me to do. I took this system to its maximum potential. And Flynn says, yeah, I know. He says, I took it, I got it as perfect as it could be. He's like, yeah, but the thing is, perfection is also imperfection. But you didn't know that, because I didn't know that when I programmed you.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said about like programming these things for perfection being a negative thing as opposed to a positive.
Yeah, I mean, well, perfection is not reality, right? Let's be honest.
It's not human reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think not even negative. Just, it's not really good or bad. Just understand what it is, because I'm already noticing when I can't get the autocorrect, like, it'll pay attention to everything else, but when it won't start auto-correcting my sentences because it's just poor grammar that I'm using in the sentences. So it's like that part of being you, like, especially for those that like to play with language, like, keep playing with language, and AI will never replace you, right? Because it's not built to be imperfect, right?
Yeah. It's so funny, because I've noticed, Chris, with what you're talking about, that I use Grammarly, because listen, I'm a high school dropout, right? So the grammar, the spelling, sometimes not so great. Like, I've had times where the computer goes, out of all the words in the world, this looks like none of them. So it like doesn't even know what to tell me. But I've noticed that sometimes I'll look at Grammarly and be like, no, I don't want to change that. I know that you want me to use this other word, but that's not the word that I want to use because this is exactly how I would say it. And so like realizing that there's a level of using these tools, but not losing yourself. That's where people are gonna, because it's so streamlined, it's so easy, it's so optimized, it's so easy button. But are you just wiping you out of it? And that's why I come back to this. It's human powered, AI assisted. Always be measuring what level of that you need in what you're doing when you're doing things. Anyway.
Let's get into it, George. What's the
Oh man, I'm sitting here going, do I even want to do a skill of the day today?
I could hear it.
This is such a good conversation. Like, okay, all right. Well, we'll throw it in there real quick. So today, skill that pays the bills. We're gonna go operation style. All right. So today we're diving into something that can seriously free up your time and save you from countless headaches. Process automation. We all have those like tedious, repetitive tasks that no one wants to deal with, whether it's entering data, tackling inventory, or sending out those monthly invoices. These are the tasks that keep things running, but can drain your time and energy faster than anything else. But here's the good news. AI-powered tools like robotic process automation, Zapier, Microsoft Power Automate, if this, then that, which is like old school before its time almost, but like, come on, can take over those mind-numbing tasks. Yep, you heard that right. AI can handle those repetitive jobs while you focus on big picture strategy and growth. So picture this. You're running a business. Might not be too hard to picture or imagine because you're probably running a business or managing a department. And every week you're drowning in data entry. You're manually plugging information into your CRM, keeping track of stock levels, sending out invoices one by one. Sure, it's important work, but it's definitely not what gets your creative juices flowing. Now imagine AI-powered automation stepping in, again with those tools and those triggers and those actions, that data entry, that inventory tracking. It's all real time. It's all being automatically sent out. You don't have to worry about the invoices, except for maybe getting paid by the humans. But sending them out becomes easy, and honestly, so much more. I'm just scratching the surface here. These assistants don't get tired. They don't make typos, and they definitely don't need coffee breaks. They just get the job done, freeing you up to focus on what really matters, growing your business, creating new strategies, and spending time on the parts of your work that actually energize you. All right, so say you're managing inventory for an e-commerce store. Instead of manually updating stock levels after each sale, your assistant can automatically adjust inventory. Or if you're handling client invoices, the whole process, sending, reminding, generating reports, which, by the way, was a whole invoice HubSpot update. Anyway, not why we're here. The beauty of it, you're still in charge, but you got people. Well, assistants that are helping you in the background with all of this. So let's boil it down for today. Automation, or automate the boring stuff. AI-powered tools will help you do that over time. Boost your real-time efficiency, whether it's inventory tracking or anything else that we've talked. Keep your operations running smoothly with these assistants and free your time. Ladies and gentlemen, free your time for big picture thinking. Automate the routine and you'll have more time to think strategically, innovate, and dive into the parts of your business that you love and that need you more than those repetitive tasks. The bottom line, process automation isn't just a fancy term. It's a secret weapon for working smarter, not harder. Ladies and gentlemen, that's today's AI skill that pays the bills.
Amen. Yeah, we're not going one episode without one of those, brother. So
I mean, if I can keep coming up with them, I'm wondering like day 30 or episode 50, like what skill will I have? But we'll see.
As long as you keep it as a skill to pay the bills,
yeah,
you can branch out. Doesn't have to necessarily stick to marketing.
Well, that's the fun part is that this news every day. It's like skill to pay the bills. Figure out how this stuff scans your eyes. Like
the skill to pay the bill for the day is how not to lose your shit when you when you see the new news report. That's the skill of the day.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that I thought was just, and I don't know if it's on. I'm pretty sure it's only on mobile because I don't know if there's a desktop downloadable version yet. But one of the things I thought was amazing was that Google is obviously sort of upset by what Perplexity is able to do. You notice that Microsoft doesn't even care. Like people were saying, oh, Microsoft's going to be so upset because GPT is using Bing for GPT search. And what? Why do they care? They own like less than 5% of the market or something. It's such a small number. So what happens is I have Perplexity on my phone. I have an Android, so I'm not sure if this is doable on Apple. Probably not.
We have Perplexity on Apple, if that's what you're saying.
Well, I use the web version.
Oh, okay.
So I know this. So this is an odd, like, funny thing. I know that there are app versions of all of this stuff. The app versions, to me, are watered down, very watered down. The capabilities are not quite as robust. A lot of stuff is not quite there. It's great for voice, not so much for like if I'm doing work. So what I do is I just have them open in web tabs and I just use them straight out of the web.
Gotcha.
The console is equally as nice to use. So it's not like you're trying to use a desktop tiny version or something. So when I'm using chat, I start typing something and I realize I need to edit. So I go to select the text, and where it would normally say search in Google, it says ask Perplexity.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, when I did the right click, if you could classify it as that, there wasn't even like, there was the web search option, but you just click on the 3 dots and all of a sudden there's an ask Perplexity option. And it's like, if that were in place of, or if that were what happens when I click web search, man, that'd be the cat's meow right there. Like I could just skip past all the BS and all the, I don't even know if that link's relevant and all of that kind of stuff. And especially when you click search Google, 9 out of 10 times, it goes straight to link version and not to the generative answer version.
I mean, let's be honest, right? Another thing that you sent over, this is like a couple days ago. It was a Sam Altman interview. And one of the students asked the question of like, well, what about all the information that isn't in the model? And Sam's quick response was, well, we want to make sure we get all the information into the model. And so start to think about that. Like it in a world where all the information is in the model. I don't have a need for Google. I don't have a need for Bing. I don't like, and when I say Google, I mean Google search, right? And I said when there was this like kind of, it was announced maybe before its time, but there was this whole thing around GPT search. As soon as I heard those terms and I allowed my brain to dream, I was like, oh, Google's dead. I'm not going to go there. And I know I'm not unlike many other humans. Like, they're not going to go there.
No, they're definitely not. They're scrambling to figure out how to change the model, how to make it work now that it's almost completely broken. And yeah, I'm not sure that there is much that you can do at this point. That, again, this is the greatest disruptor to everything we have ever done in regard to technology. Everything. There are things that have been done already that I'm sure, like, okay, so there's things like DeepMind, right? In its infinite excellence, discovered something like over 1 million different types of materials, okay, like compounds that could be manufactured. Of those million, the most possible that we could actually put together today, or with today's technology, it was 700. Those 700 we would not have discovered for 80 years, at least, according to the model. So that still hasn't trickled down into everyday life, that technology. Think back on microwaves, that came about as a result of space program. Now
Yeah.
think about how long it took, right, to go from tech invention to kitchen. It took a while, right? It takes a while for this stuff to trickle down. So we're only 2 years in.
Yeah.
3, if you watch that, and I'll you got to put the link. Got to put the link in the post. If you watch this interview, you'll actually. It's. Did I post the one from Michigan University in there? It just
I think it
happened
was.
a couple days ago.
I think it was Michigan. I'll have to look back in our Slack.
All right. That's the one you want to watch
Yeah.
because that's where Sam talks about the fact that life is never going to be the same. Every year is going to be more mind-blowing than the year before. So the only thing that you can possibly do in order to keep up with all of it is to wake up with AI.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Dude, that was pro level shit right